Alain's work was like epic poetry. The formulas in my notebook are just silly little riddles in comparison. Not that there's anything bad about them. I mean, at least, solving those riddles isn't going to hurt anyone. Except me, because I lose a few brain cells in the process. Anyway, while we're on the topic, I might as well tell you about what happened to him and his friends. Alain Guillotin had two close buddies, René and Jacob. They spent their childhood years together in the Narzissenkreuz Institute. They were all quite competitive, so there was some rivalry between them. But it was a friendly rivalry. But beneath the friendship and the rivalry ran something deeper, a sense of nostalgia for the past. Unfortunately, childhood would end. The prophecy would come true. The apocalypse would arrive. And the future would never be. A mad dream that would normally only capture the minds of lunatics begin to take root in their hearts. A dream of saving the world. And if René and Alain had been people of lesser wits, that dream would probably have ended up as something for them to joke about in their older years. But alas, they were some of the sharpest minds around. They nurtured that dream with the full power of their intellect, and it grew into something that ate away at their souls. The first of them to fall under its spell was René. Against Alain's wishes, he persisted in experimenting on a mutual friend of theirs to try and save their life. Alain did not approve and parted ways with René. It's complicated. Alain wanted to believe that René only did what he did for the sake of their friendship. But when he told me about what happened, I could tell he still had some suspicions about René's motives. Perhaps the seed that would grow into a nightmare had already sprouted in René's mind. Even then, the next time they met, René's soul had been completely engulfed by the dream of salvation. His futile attempt to change the tide of fate only resulted in a wave that swallowed up the world, even before the apocalypse came. And although that wave died down eventually, I hear that it just recently came back with a vengeance. As I understand, René wanted to live out his dream of salvation once more.
Oh yeah.
But I'm told that the attempted resurgence finally died out for good. At long last, René awoke from his deluded dream. Though of course by then it was far too late. What do you think of René? Do you admire his transcendent genius? His view that any price was worth paying to achieve the lofty goal of saving the world? Or do you despise him? Dismiss him as an evil madman who wrought havoc on the lives of everyone around him as he pursued his delusional dream? Same difference, really. Just a matter of perspective. Doesn't surprise me. You share one thing in common, after all. You both want to be the savior. The only difference is, your dream came true, and his... well, he wasn't the one who made it come true. I don't like fanatics who give up their whole lives for their ideology. Nor do I like fools who let their delusions take control. Maybe I could understand if René had just been an ordinary person. But he had a sage-like intellect, and still managed to get himself lost in a labyrinth of his own desires. Anyway, that's enough about René. Now, moving on to Alain Guillotin, the Lord Artificer. He managed to put a stop to the first storm whipped up by René. But after that, Alain lost his friends and family. To his credit, I suppose, the loss of his family and friends was purely a tragic accident. It's not like Alain sacrificed them for his cause or anything. After that, the only thing supporting his work was the same dream that had dragged his closest friend down to the abyss. But although the desire to save Fontaine drove him to found the Fontaine Research Institute, Alain continued to reject any form of transcendental knowledge or power. He was suspicious and fearful of it, having seen the way it had affected his closest friend. I think that formulas and machines derived solely from human intellect were the only thing that gave him a sense of spiritual comfort. Yet Alain's intellect was simply too great. It barely left him space to breathe in his lifetime. Once he realized that the end of his life was approaching, he finally accepted the truth. The Nazissenkreuz Institute needed someone, and a human being, to see its story through to the end. He quit working on his formulas, trading them in for the fairy tales that had played such a formative role in his childhood, but which he barely touched in his adult life. He told me that the director of the Nazissenkreuz Institute used to read those fairy tales to the children as bedtime stories. Apparently, they worked wonders at sending kids off to sleep. I think that all he wanted at that time in his life was to be able to sleep deeply without being plagued by depression. By that point, nothing else really mattered. At the very end, he laid down to rest in the ruins of the former Nazissenkreuz Institute orphanage, while the Fontaine Research Institute he had founded continued tirelessly with its work. Many years after that, tensions over competing dreams would once again cause a rift, this time between members of the Fontaine Research Institute. But the actions of those fools had nothing at all to do with Alain. And that is the story of two people from the Nazissenkreuz Institute who both wanted to save the world. One went all in on his fantasy of salvation without ever looking back, and ended up calmly sinking to the bottom of the deepest sea. The other sought desperately to burn bright in his life, even though he wasn't sure where he was going. I do sometimes wonder, why is it that people like them have such grand hopes of saving the world? Even the grandest tree starts as a tiny seed. So perhaps, for each of them, their mission to save the world began with a very simple desire: to save themselves. They were young children with friends and family who mattered to them, desires to explore the meaning of life, ambitions to have a successful career. They didn't want to see all of that taken away in one fell swoop.
I see.
Or maybe they just wanted to find something to anchor themselves within the chaos, to stop them getting quietly swept away by the storms of life. But instead, the search for their own salvation took them down the rocky road laid out by fate. Do you think the desire to save oneself is enough of a justification to try and save the world? The way you said that sounded just like Alain. I asked him the same question back when he was in his prime, putting all of his energy into his work. He gave the exact same answer as you did. No elaboration, just a quick short answer before getting right back to his work. He was always that way. All right, tea time's over. I owe Arlecchino a favor for telling me these stories. I'll have to bring a whole sack of gifts the next time I visit the House of the Hearth. I'm gonna go tinker with Polonia now. You guys can do whatever you want, as long as it doesn't involve interrupting me.
Okay, that was a
Polonia,
lot.
exit hibernation mode. Begin diagnostics.
Don't tell me there's still more. I was about to say, there's still more? Well, that's a lot of information for just all that. But, yeah. That should be it for everything.
Observe.